RotoGrinders! Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Ed, Blender HD. You want to follow me there on Twitter. And it's Monday, so you know what we do on Mondays. It's Mondays with McCool. James McCool, paydirt_DFS, the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com. So get your questions. We'll be talking about just strategy today, pretty much. I don't know. We're going to talk about yesterday's slate or today's slate. We got a 7-gamer today, so maybe we'll talk about it. So post in the YouTube chat as always. I see you guys in there. Give me those thumbs ups on your way in the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. So James. We're getting into the dog days of MLB DFS. NBA's over, right? The Bucks won the title, so we don't get showdown contests for that. I've been doing well in MMA the past month, so like I've been doing better in MMA than I have in MLB. So that typically it's the other way around. But we're getting into the dog days where we're going to start getting maybe some preseason NFL coming up. Preparing for the big NFL season, and you have to admit that the big money is in NFL. I mean, like when NFL comes around September through December, that's, the people that haven't played DFS for 8 months, that's when they start coming around. So like, once September hits, like I'm less inclined to care about these 40-man rosters and the shenanigans that go on. Who's going to be in the starting lineup today for these baseball teams, and care much more about NFL. So what are your plans for now that, we pretty much, I mean, I know you're going to be playing some esports or something that they probably, something's always going on there, but what are your plans the next month with we're finally getting to the point in the MLB season where you're like, I can't wait for NFL because you kind of get sick of it. And then we'll get to the point where it's like, I'm actually looking forward to NBA being back in October and November. And then after like the first week of people sitting and who knows what's going on and late news, you'd be like, okay, I know why I didn't miss this.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I'm pretty burnt out, honestly. This MLB season has been rough for a lot of different reasons, but the main one being what we talked about last week with that sticky substance breakdown. Projections have been hard, I think, in terms of like projecting pitchers and stuff like that. And it's still been profitable. Like this has still been a good MLB season. I've still been happy with the results of it, but I think usually where I'm starting to get burnt out in like the middle of August, I'm there maybe 2 weeks forward. Just because it's been, and maybe it's not just because the baseball season has been weird. Like maybe it's because I'm also running all the esports stuff every single day, and like maybe I'm just a little burnt out in that way. But I am looking forward to NFL, and I'm very happy that NBA is over because now over the next month, I get to put together the NFL model, and that's fun. Like that's one of the things that I really enjoy about this industry is being able to look forward and say, okay, how can I like open up the model from last year? And then I always have a process. So I'll open up the model and then I will try to refresh it once, just right off the bat. I'll just say, okay, let's just see if I can run this. Never works. Has never worked once, ever on the first try. Something is always broken, whether it is a data connection to a site that I scrape stats from, or maybe I wrote the code wrong and it's inefficient. That's usually something I have to fix every single year. Or maybe like a site changed the way that players' names are put together, right? So like last year it was Todd Gurley and this year it's Todd Gurley the third, or last year it was Dalvin Cook and this year it's Cook, Dalvin or something. Like this next month is going to be cleaning everything up that has changed over the offseason so that when NFL season actually starts, we can just jump right in and like everything is ready to go. Everything's primed, everything's ready to go. So the next month, going to be cleaning up a lot of the NFL stuff. At MLB at this point, I'm efficient enough in the way that I run my models that there's really not much for me to do outside of put together NFL and like obviously the esports stuff as well. So just gonna be focusing on how to improve and clean up and get ready for the NFL season. And who knows, maybe I'll do some preseason this year. I never do preseason NFL, but like I have a season long model this year because I wanted to build one. And after running through that, I have a pretty good idea, I think, of like who these teams are going to be. So maybe I'll play some preseason, but for the most part, I'm just looking forward to getting the NFL models ready and put together and cleaned up.
Well, for the rest of the MLB season, the thing that I'm noticing that I've decided I'm focusing now more on the smaller field, higher stakes, single entry, 3 max, 4 max, whatever. Like typically DraftKings has like the 250 4 max, the 121 single entry. I mean, obviously they occasionally run those the 762 or the 555. I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily playing that as much, but now they're doing like the $5 like super lotto stuff,
Yeah.
70,000 entries, typically that's my cup of tea. The problem with this point of the season, like we see this in every sport. The beginning of the season, we get a lot of new money in,
Mhm.
and then it starts drying up as the season goes on. Just like late NBA. It's like only the true degenerates are playing late NBA, right? Like in the beginning of the season, you get weaker action. You get more action from weaker players. As it goes on, you don't get as much. And typically, like my biggest struggle has always been that the smaller field, higher stakes contests are more stable,
Mhm.
less swingy, because the payout structure tends to be a little bit flatter, and you don't have to you don't have to get the absolute nuts on the slate to win. But the problem is that the strength of the field is so much is stronger versus the large field contests where you'll get plenty of bad lineups. You could get up to 20% of lineups that have virtually no chance to win, and that pays for the rake plus then. And like, why wouldn't I play as many lineups as I can into these? The problem is that it's hard to realize your EV, and even in a season's worth of contests, right? So as the season goes on, you start taking a look at these CSVs, and even in the large field contests, they're getting relatively stronger, because less weak money is playing. The thing is that these super lottos, I mean, the amount of 150 maxers there are is quite finite. There aren't going to be as many new, I'm going to put in 150 lineups type of people. Now, when the bat flip on DraftKings is $18, more than half of the entries into that contest, because typically it's only around 10,000, maybe 12,000 entries. Sometimes it's even less. Half the entries are from people that play 150 max.
Yeah.
And playing 150 max is not an advantage. Like you could go into the theory of DFS course. We explained that all. It just, people that play 150 lineups are the better players, because you wouldn't be able to survive as a bad player playing 150 lineups. You'll be broke at some point, right? And you go away. So it's more of a correlation, not causation type of situation. So with the finite amount of 150 maxers, obviously a contest that has 70,000 entries, less percentage of the field are those players. Now, it may stimulate people that normally put in 10 lineups to put in 50 lineups. I mean, there may still be a good amount of strong players that put lineups in, but with the amount of money, we're not going to get new MLB money coming in August. If anything, it's going to be working towards NFL. It's going to be the preseason contest. It's going to be the Hall of Fame game. It's going to be that type of stuff that I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to allocate my bankroll on a day-to-day basis. And from my perspective, I think it's weird to say, I'd rather put not more money, but I'd rather save some volume to put it into preseason NFL. Because, I mean, we see some of these slates where the guy that's not even is going to be in street clothes is 8% owned, right? Because he's the starting running back, but it's like they've already said he's not playing. And then for MLB, instead of trying to, bank a 70,000 person tournament, if the field strength with the amount of dead money going down is going to get closer and closer, why don't I just play the smaller field stuff and just, make the best decisions I can with the few lineups that I'm going to play. And then, basically wait for September for NFL. Like, I don't know what you're doing with your bankroll challenge. I mean, you're not playing the level of contest that I'm playing regardless, because you're playing the mini max type, the $1, the 20 max, those types of contests. But are you making any type of change in the contest selection that you're playing, or are you going to just keep on doing what you're doing?
No, I mean, I've had to make a change because we've talked about, if for those who have been watching the show for months.
Well, I hope they have.
I also hope they have. I have talked at length about having MME as a leak in my game, where like I like the concept of MME. I think that I understand how to play MME well. I don't know that my process is great. So I have been really trying this year to plug that leak. I'm still not great at it. Newsflash from MLB. So I have had to make a change. I did take a break from like actual dedicated playing about 2 days before the All-Star break, and I played yesterday, but I've been spotty because, like I said, I've been burnt out. And I think that when you're burnt out, like you have to be able to give yourself a break, and you have to be able to like sit back and say, if I play this, I'm going to make mistakes because I'm not in the right mindset to actually make good decisions right now. So I took a little bit of a break, but going back into it, I do have to reassess, and I have to go in and say, okay, I need to be playing like the $12 single entry. I need to be playing like the $20 three max, stuff like that. Because when I look back at my MME stuff, it's not near as good as my single and three max entry stuff, because that's where I come from, right? My best play and the way that I do the best in any sport in DFS is that single to three entry max, usually that $150 to $250 range. That's usually what I want to play. So I need to be able to go back to that for my bankroll challenge. But in regards to how the rest of the season plays out, like you're right, there's less dead money. There's less opportunity to kind of take advantage of people making a lot of mistakes, because we are getting into the point. I mean, we probably have maybe a month left, I would say 3 weeks left of like people are still just mainlining MLB, because frankly, there's nothing else to do. There's PGA. There is, if you're with me or if you're with one of the other guys who provide esports content, there's a lot of esports to be done, but MLB is the only main sport. So I think we're going to have about 3 weeks left of people doing that stuff. But as soon as preseason NFL hits, you and I have talked at length about the last month or so of every season. You really got to just drop down your volume. I think unless you are doing it for a living, and this is like the only sport that you're playing, but like you do this for a living, and I'm sure that during the last month of the season, you're going to be jumping onto the new money in NFL. And like I would say,
most seasons of the past MLB seasons, typically I don't even play in September.
Right. Yeah. Because the money is so much easier to make in the next sport. It's why I tell everybody who subscribes and anybody who will listen to me that the first month and a half of every sport is the most profitable that you can be, just because like there's so much new money. There's so many dead lineups. There are so many people that are just going in and making bad decisions. And those bad decisions and those worst players are lesser and lesser and lesser as the season goes on. And then the last month and a half of every season of every single major sport, it's just the degenerates, and it's just the pro players, and it's just the people who are good. And like you said, that skill gap is starting to close a little bit as the season goes on. So you want to go on to the next thing where that skill gap is wider, where you can take advantage of more mistakes. So I'm not sure what my plan is for the next like month in terms of my bankroll from MLB. I'm definitely going to drop down a little bit. I've been playing somewhere between 4 and 5% of my bankroll in the bankroll challenge. I'm going to drop that down to somewhere between 2 and 3%, and just start focusing more on NFL and focusing a lot more on moving forward into where there is more dead money, so I can take more advantage of that.
I'm going to see if I can I have my rotor tracker. I mean, I updated this maybe a week or two ago. Weekday, do I have month? Can I separate it by, I don't know. I've never tried to do this. Let's see. Isn't in rotor tracker, can I do it by month?
Yeah, you can put a time limit.
Yeah, but I just want to know I want to know every September combined.
Oh no, I don't think you can
No,
do
I
that.
don't think you could do that, right? Because you could do weekdays, right? You can't just.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do it by month and then add them up. But I just thought just show me January's, February's, March's. No, I don't think. I mean, I could do that in Excel, but I mean,
Yeah.
okay, I can't. I can't do. I'm surmising. I believe my most profitable ROI percentage wise is September's. Right. And I've only been playing NFL for like 4 years. So I didn't even start playing NFL. So it's like you have maybe 3.5 seasons
Yeah.
of NFL, but September, to me, and someone's asking in the chat about cash games. The same absolutely applies. Actually, it applies faster.
I would say more.
Games. Right.
Yeah.
But cash games meaning head-to-heads, double ups, stuff like that. Like on DraftKings now, I'm not even bothering with MLB any cash games at all. There's no dead. I don't want to say no, but there's virtually no. I couldn't sell a head to head if I was in a used car, lot. I mean, FanDuel, different story. FanDuel's a little bit easier. And also on FanDuel, I still have low stakes eligibility, so that's a different story. But on DraftKings, $5 and up, I mean, number one, I can't sell games. Anything that I'm going to be taking is going to be people that are already posting in the lobby. So, and I look in the lobby and it's all sharp. It's all sharp enough players. And then I look in the double ups and I'm like where's the dead money? Where's
Right.
even in the beginning of the season on DraftKings, it wasn't there wasn't that much of an influx in the cash games. Now in the GPPs, sure, yeah, there's plenty of dead money there. FanDuel a little bit easier, but in NFL, to me, the first 4 to 6 weeks of NFL, I'll always play cash games. The difference between the strength in the first in September versus December is dramatic, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
I could probably in NFL sell $2,000 to $3,000, $4,000 of head-to-heads that I want. Not auto match, not just post them and whatever. And I typically post once the salaries come out. I post head-to-heads. Even if it could be 3-4 weeks in advance. I don't care. I just want rando people to start taking them. But I found that, especially for cash games, the beginnings of seasons, for the first month of any season. Baseball, because we had the problem with baseball this year is that basketball went on for much longer, that the seasons were misaligned that it normally would be. And also there's probably less interest in playing cash games in MLB, truthfully. And there's less interest, I've noticed year over year since starting in 2015, that the casual participation in double ups and head-to-heads has gone down year after year. Because most people want to put in a little money and win a lot. So they're going to play GPPs. They're not going to be excited to play a double up. A lot of times in double ups, you're playing against other people that, subscribe to some other site, or, that they're looking to do it for beer money or for a living to some extent, and they're trying to beat the games for a small edge. And it's the differences between our lineups aren't that drastic. People aren't making big mistakes. And you may see 2 or 3 guys at the bottom of the day. Yeah, sure, okay, right, but not en masse. So as time goes on, I've always been focused on GPPs, even though my cash volume, I always play high cash volume, but the cash volume is there just to even out the swings of the GPPs. So I'm not making the majority of my money on cash games, even in NFL, where I do make money. It's to even out. Now I could play, the 3 entries into the power sweep and the spy, and then I play 100 entries into the slant. I'm playing enough GPP entries that my cash games for the season pay for a lot of that anyway. So it's I want to have swings not be dramatically up or down. So, but I'm not going to just play cash games for the sake of doing so and going into a 23-man double up, 22-man double up and seeing all the same names and going, what's the point of this? We're all losing to the rake at best, right? I mean, if everyone's equal. So to me, to me, you should not be DFS. If you're looking to make money, you should not be focused on cash games. I've said that. I've said this a million times. If you're starting, especially with a small bankroll, do not bother at all. You might as well just get a part-time job at McDonald's or something. If the only thing that you would be playing cash games for is that, number one, you're good at them and it evens out your GPP swings, or you're looking to be the best cash player and then build yourself up to, end up playing Empire Maker for 50K head-to-heads a slate. Like you have to start somewhere, right? But you start at the very low end of the spectrum. But to build up your bankroll to that extent would take you God knows how long, 10 years, right? To compound all the way up like that. So that's why I say I don't think it's worth it. The only time to me, even if you're playing on a small bankroll, is the start of the NFL season. Like week 1, I mean, seriously, I could look at half the head-to-heads that get sold and go, what are these people doing? Sometimes they beat you. Yeah, sometimes they beat you, right? But you take a look at the lineups and you go, especially the first week, where a lot of times where we get the salaries come out like 3-4 weeks in advance, and then there's injuries, there's you get running backs that 4,000 that are obviously should be 3,000 more. Wide receivers. Oh, the wide receiver one of this team is 3,800 and has a target share of 27% because of some preseason thing or whatever. Like, it's going to be so inefficient that you see people playing head-to-heads and you go, how did this guy not take the 45% owned dudes that are in double ups? And then you look in double ups and you're like, why is this dude only 45%? He should be like 80% at his price. So you get a lot of mistakes the first week, especially, but typically the first month. So I don't mind putting money into that. But as the season goes on, I'm focused on winning GPPs. That's where more of the dead money is. So that's my attitude when it comes to August with MLB. Where's the dead money? Well, there's not that much dead money anywhere. So where's the least, the most amount of dead money in comparison to the variance I have to do to realize my EV? Well, you could say these super knuckleballs at $5 could be where most of the dead money is. But I could $5 super knuckleball is what, $7.50? Sometimes they make it $6 and it's $900 to max center. Like, if I do that for 30 days straight, I mean, there's no guarantee that I bink any of them, right? And if less casual people are playing anyway, like, why don't I just play the 555 with one lineup, right? I mean, cash. I may not lose as much money in the process of potentially binking a similar amount of money, 50K to first, 100K to first in the 555, and a much smaller field. Yes, the field strength is higher in general, but I think the large field stuff is about the same anyway. So that's my shift. So, but in the beginning of NFL season, I do the complete opposite. You start with like cash games, large field, and then by December, I'm primarily playing the higher stakes, smaller field stuff. Because it's less likely, James, that someone. I mean, I guess not. I mean, I would have to ask around, or I could play. I mean, I'll play the power sweep. I'll play the mid, the $100, 150, 200 level stuff regardless. But just to look at the CSVs and see the comparison, because you have to think, it's not just necessarily the money. I mean, like there are richer people that are. It's the first week of NFL season. I'm entering the $1,000 contest. Right? I mean, like we see that in poker. Like, just because the stakes are high doesn't mean you don't get bad players at high stakes. So maybe it's the type of thing that, is it more across the board in the beginning of NFL season that even at higher stakes, you still get a percentage of really, really bad dead bunny type of players, and it just periodically goes down evenly? I can't see. I have to think that the proportion of dead money has to be in the small stakes, large field stuff, regardless, in proportion to the higher stakes stuff.
Yeah, it would be hard for me to think that there would be a similar percentage of dead money in each payout bracket, right? Like, if you have the massive GPP, especially like the $3 like that huge, like 150,000 person $3 tournament or something like that. I mean, that's where the massive percentage of dead money, and we're not talking like base entries, because of course there's like way more base entries. We're talking percentages. So if there's like 23% of the massive $3 tournament in NFL is just straight up none of those lineups stand a chance. I don't think that there's 23% of the 555 or of the Wildcat, the 333. I don't think there's 23% of the Wildcat that is also dead money. Maybe it's like 18%. Maybe it's like, maybe there's still enough to pay the rake the first month, but I don't think that you're gaining any like extra percentage above the rake. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I'd argue it's even lower than 18% in the Wildcat.
Yeah, I was thinking that was high. Like, how many entries are in the Wildcat? There's like 5,000 or something like that. I don't remember.
Something around there.
So there's probably, yeah, I would think there's probably only like 12%, maybe 10 to 12% of dead lineups in the Wildcat. And
dead money. It's not in the dead line. They're not dead.
Just that
heavily negative EV. I would say that's a better way of putting it.
That's a better way to put it.
Right.
But then like in the $1,000 in the luxury box, it's got to be like 5%.
Right.
There's no way that 23% of the luxury box is dead money. I mean, if you're playing those stakes, maybe there's like 20 people in the luxury box that are just like, I'm going to throw money at this because it's the first week of the NFL season. I'm going to throw money at this because I think I got unlucky last week in the second week of the NFL season.
Right.
I don't think that there's a lot of people that are playing that.
We have to define, but James, we always have to define. I just want to make it clear for people that may not, we've had these types of discussions before. Dead money does not mean dead lineups. People think of dead money and go, oh, you're talking about lineups that like have injured players in them, have like people that aren't starting. I'm talking dead money. If you play your cash lineup, a heavily owned cash, everything is no correlation, heavily owned cash lineup, that I consider you dead money also.
Yep.
Anything that is because if you ran it over a million times, you'd be negative EV. You'd cash a lot, but you'd almost never, you possibly never win first.
I would even argue
that's dead money. So when you're talking about the Wildcat or the luxury box, even like a dead lineup in the luxury box to me is if crunch by ownership type of lineup, right? The highest owned players at every position, the highest owned defense. It's like I'm not even sure how you win the luxury box, and the luxury box is it's a $3,000 contest with like 120 people in it. So I mean, like that's the contest you're most likely to win with the cash lineup, and that wins so little. So if you're playing let's say you're playing a 333 in the Wildcat with 5,000 entries. If I showed you a lineup that looked like your cash lineup, but maybe the quarterback and the wide receiver are correlated, to me that's still a dead lineup. It's still a lineup that has like no leverage. That like it's heavily negative EV, even though it min cashes a lot more often than other lineups. If you played this 100,000 times, it would be one of the most unprofitable lineups in the contest because it rarely, if ever, wins top 5 or anything. Well, so to me that's a dead line. So someone that comes in, it's like I know DFS, NFL DFS. I know what the good plays are, and I'm just going to build a lineup that like is duplicated in double ups, right? Like that type of like. To me, that's a dead lineup also. So It's not just people that are just like mashing buttons and playing guys that who knows who and whatever, overpaying for this guy and playing this guy that's on a snap count and the defense against. I mean, like those are bad lineups too, right? But even those min cash lineups, to me, they're dead lineups as well. So you could find that. To me, that's the biggest edge because in large field GPPs, even in small field ones, you find a lot of those lineups. You find what are the best plays, and you take a look at those lineups. If you were to take those lineups and then simulate the contest a million times, like those lineups never win. Like they never. So you're paying, and you don't min cash often enough. So that lineup, like if for every dollar you put in, it returns like 60 cents. Right? So it's like, well, it returns 60. Yeah, but that's not like, yeah, it returned because it min cashes enough, but never wins. But over a million times, I'm playing a lineup that wins point something percent of the time, comes in the top 10 point something percent of the time. And then over the course of a million trials, 10,000 trials, whatever, a large number of trials, my lineup put in $1, it returns $1.36. But in the times that all that extra money that it returns is when it wins, right? It's not like your 64 cents, which you're losing 36 cents on the dollar every time you play it. It's because it min cashes often enough to keep you, it's still heavily unprofitable. But my lineup, you'd see, doesn't cash 92% of the time, right? So it's putting in $1, getting back $0, putting in $1, getting back $0, but putting in $1, getting back $150, coming in, 8th place, right? Something like that. That happens more frequently. So that's how you have to think in terms of the expected value of lineups. But that's what I mean by dead money, James. So a lot of people, when they hear that, they think, oh, people that are just completely dumb and put in, sometimes we see reserve lineups that people don't even fill out, right? Like that's dead money. It's like, no, dead money is heavily chalky, the best play lineups that just don't have enough relative value to win often enough. If ever. You could run the simulation 10,000 times and it literally never comes in the top 10. Yet you'll see, and you'll download the CSV and you'll see tons of lineups like that. To me, that's the edge. That's where the 23%, that number you come in. Like that's like out of that 23%, there's only like maybe 5% that's like the really dead lineups.
Like literally not a lineup that can like score points.
Right. Lineups that half the team is not even playing. You're getting automatic zeros.
Yeah.
Michael Dompier asks, is one of the problems that so many states now allow online sports gambling, so it's cannibalizing the dead money going to DFS? No, if you take a look at the user growth for DraftKings, it's actually up.
Yeah.
Right. So the prize pools in every sport year after year are up. Now they're getting more and more top heavy, which I'm not a big fan of, but they're actually going up. So to me, I've always thought, even when PAPSA was struck down and these states were going to legalize sports betting, that's, to me, sports betting only helps DFS. It's not the other way around. It's not now that I could bet on sports, I don't have to play DFS anymore. Like, to me, sports betting gives more, what's this DFS thing, right? I'm already betting on the platform. And people know fantasy football. So like they understand the concept of fantasy. It's a little bit more work. So to me, the user growth goes up. But where is that money going? To me, the money's going into GPPs. It's not going into double ups and head-to-heads, right? And DFS Degenerate asks, so with MLB being a daily sport and NFL being a weekly sport, it's not completely weekly because you have showdowns and stuff. Do you plan to play a week's worth of your bankroll? Yes, I play a heavier percentage of my bankroll in NFL than I do in a daily sport like MLB or NBA. But it's not necessarily because it's weekly. It's because it's much, much softer.
Well, I play 8 to 10% per week instead of the 3 to 4% or 3 to 5% that I play for daily sports, simply because there's less weeks. Like there's just less opportunities. And I think,
but James, you're doing that. See, we have to preface this with, we're both profitable players.
Right.
So, but it's not that, like, if you take away that fact, it's one of those correlation versus causation things. Like, you only win because you play 150 lineups. It's like, no, the only people that survive playing 150 lineups are people that play 150 good lineups, and that's why they play 150, right? So it's the same type of thing. Like, if you're a losing player, like, I'm going to triple up the amount I play during NFL season, you're going to lose 3 times as much. You're just
going to be dead 2 months in.
Right. You're not doing it because, you only have 18 weeks. I'm doing it more to the fact that NFL is so much softer than all the other sports. I need to make as much money as I can as quickly as possible when I have the edge. So, like, instead of playing during MLB and NBA, I'm playing like 1%, 2%, like per slate or something like that, somewhere in that range. And in NFL, I'm playing like 6 to 8%, 5 to 7. It depends. In the beginning, in the first week of the season, I mean, it'll get close. It could be 10%. And how conservative I am.
I do. Yeah.
But I can't pass that. That first month of NFL season, it's to me, I've never got, you could get unlucky. I mean, yes, you could still make good lineups and lose to bad players. But the past 3 years of NFL, September is, I think the first, because I've done NFL for 3 full seasons. The half a season I played didn't include the first month of the season, so I can't include that. That's why I wanted that cohort analysis in RotoTracker. I believe the first year of playing NFL, like if there were 4 weeks in a season, I mean, in a September, I think over 3 years, I've only had 2 losing weeks in September. So it's something like 3-1, 4-0, 3-1, or something the past 3 years. And maybe that's a little bit, positive variance in my way, a little bit. But you compare that to December, compare that to November. Like December, I'm like break even. November, I'm like break even. October, I'm small profit. But it all, to me, it all comes down to the feel. It has to. I'm not doing anything different yet for 3 years. And I'm talking about cash games, because obviously, like I won the slanting in October. I won a thing in December. I mean, that's obviously going to, inflate everything. I'm just talking about cash games. That Septembers are just like, why wouldn't I? Like what, instead of me playing, let's say I played $10,000 in cash games a week for 18 weeks. That's $180,000. Like, wouldn't it make more sense knowing that there's easier money earlier?
Yeah.
Start by playing, 15 to 18,000, and then maybe by the end you're not even playing cash game. I mean, like, if you're going to allocate that money that way, like, I'd rather. I mean, that's what you should be doing in general. You shouldn't, even from a slate-to-slate basis in any sport, you should reduce and you should increase and decrease your volume depending on how much edge you think you have. There are some MLB slates that I look at and I go, I don't know where the edge is here. There may be, but I don't see anything to identify completely. Do I want to be playing the same? If I'm playing $1,000 a day, like, do I just play $1,000 a day, regardless of what I think my edge is? No. You'd play $1,500 some day. You play $300 some other days. Maybe you sit out some days and you play $2,000. Like, it doesn't have to be the percentage. Now, as a trend line, it should be about a percentage of your bankroll. But on a day-to-day basis, it may be the type of thing during NFL season. Who knows? Week 9 or something like that. Maybe based on your projections, you feel that the field is completely overvaluing someone, right? And totally undervaluing some other team. And it's like, well, it's the same process I've gone through every other week. And because I see this big disparity, this big inefficiency in the market, like, I'm going to double down on it. Yet on the next week, you may look and you go, let's see what the consensus is around the industry. Oh, I agree with everything, right? The projections agree with everything and everyone else agrees with everything. Oh, I'm going to, it's going to be one of those collusion weeks.
Yeah.
Right. It'd be like, oh, looks like everyone's going to have the same cash lineup on, especially on FanDuel.
It's like, right? There's a free square running back, wide receiver, tight end, and the defense is too cheap. And you're just like, guess
right. I guess everyone's paying. Everyone's going to have this Devontae Adams, and everyone's going to have this. I mean, because you could pay up McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, and then all the value plays, and then people are going to be on Twitter or Reddit like the next day going, 74 people are colluding with one another. It's like, yeah. It was easy to put but those are the weeks where I don't want to play. How much volume do I want to play?
Right.
If anything, I would play the triple ups and the quintuple ups, knowing that lineup and playing a 2v2 to try to beat that lineup. Because if you beat that lineup, you move up on like everyone, because people will be playing it in triple ups and quintuple ups. Like, that would be what you do. But it's a slate-to-slate basis on what you should be doing, not just a percentage.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why coming into MLB in August, how much of an edge do I have in certain contests? Where should I allocate my bankroll? Knowing that preseason NFL, especially cash games, there may be some there may end up being some casual money. And there's such a big, if you don't understand what to do in preseason, especially the first 2 weeks, like you're dead, especially in cash games, right? And GPPs is hard as hell as it is because no one's playing the whole game.
Yeah, it's just a variance fest in GPP.
Right. But I mean, the scores aren't that high because no one plays the whole game. But in cash games, I played preseason NFL before, and I'll sell $109 head-to-heads on Draftkings, and then open up the players lineup and see a stack.
Julio Jones.
Right. You'll see a starting wide receiver that isn't even playing. But I'm just talking about. I'll see wide receiver. Look, James, I'll see wide receivers.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly.
Right. I mean, right. Preseason NFL cash games is pretty much you play 4 quarterbacks and 2 defenses or something. You play 3 quarterbacks, 2 defenses, and a kicker. Like you're barely ever even playing running backs and wide receivers because they're playing like a quarter each.
Yep.
And you could play like both, like, one quarterback's going to play one half and this other quarterback's going to play the other half. And that's like guaranteed points. And the defenses are always on the field, right? Even the kickers, sometimes you can't play because we're going to play 2 kickers this game, right? But like, that's a cash game strategy. Obviously in GPPs, you're looking for whoever happens to score the touchdowns. But to me, that's an edge. So why shouldn't I be playing those head-to-heads rather than MLB that day? Right?
Yeah, because
on whatever
on
Sunday, preseason, Saturday preseason, of course.
Well, I did want to preface really quick. Well, I mean, I guess clarify when I'm playing 8 to 10% in NFL of my bankroll, it's because I actually play dedicated cash games. Like I don't dedicate cash games in NBA or in MLB, especially not in MLB because I think that's hilarious. But like in NFL, my ROI in cash games in NFL is ridiculous because it's so soft. So like that 8 to 10%, I'm still probably playing maybe 4 to 5% of my bankroll in GPPs, but then I'm also ramping up the other 5% in the cash games, which is something that I don't usually dedicate to. So at NFL,
but it's dramatically. But James, you see with the cash games, it's dramatically. Like it's not, but I'm not saying it's a walk in the park. It's not 2012 DFS anymore. But comparison to NBA and MLB and to all the other sports, NFL double ups feel almost like you could get something wrong and be fine.
You can get multiple things wrong and be fine because like 30% of the field in the massive like $5 double up for NFL. I legitimately think that like 25 to 30% of that field is just wrong. And that like they just don't know how to play it. Because like I think and I don't mean to make fun of newer players, but like I think that newer players will see the $5 and see that it's like a lot of entries and they'll be like, oh, this is like one of those like my mom did it last year, you know, like she entered the $5.
Thinks it's a GPP, but it's
not. Like my mom did it last year. She entered the $5 double up thinking it was a GPP and she took first in the $5 double up. And she's like, look, I took first. I'm like, Mom, I'm so sorry. That doesn't mean anything. Like you should have entered that in this contest. But like there are so many novice and new and casual players that legitimately just do not know what they are playing. And so I think in that, like, especially in those huge double ups that you really only get for NFL, I don't even think you're really competing with a full field. I think you're competing with maybe needing to beat 25% of people that know what they're doing and then place in that 51st percentile and just move on. So it really is. I understand why there's guys like JM to Win and like Levitan and those guys who play specifically NFL and focus on NFL all year because the edge is so good in NFL if you know what you're doing.
Okay, someone from the chat, Matt Schlow. I went to my dates page and sorted by I could look at like the months. You got like a little workaround, I guess, to like sort by the profit. And we could see here that, I mean, look at NFL season. I mean, this is obviously including GPPs or whatever. October, September, October. Here's a March, December. If we just take a look, like, okay, let me go by head-to-heads. Let's see. Because I don't. Okay, let me go by or just NFL. No, we really can't go by NFL because that's the whole point of comparing it. Let's see. What's the best way to do this? Well, let me go by choose category. Let's go head-to-heads. Okay. So let's see. From a head-to-head perspective, September 2018. So here's a September 2016. So I wasn't even playing NFL then. So it also includes basketball. Yeah, it's almost hard to separate this. It's still mostly NFL months when it comes to this stuff. Yeah, I wish I could sort by. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it. It's not going to work linearly this way.
We should talk to the Roto Tracker guys.
Yeah, but why would you ever need? I mean, would you want? I mean, other than this exact purpose,
right? Other than this literal example right here.
Then I don't know. I want to know how I do February's. Okay, I guess maybe it could be useful. I don't know. But yeah, it's mixed with everything. So like even if I go to head, choose a sport, NFL, add, because obviously it's only going to show NFL months.
Right.
The whole point is to compare it to other sports.
Right.
Right. So I don't want to sort it by that. So yeah, in NFL, September 2020. Yeah, that was a negative month for me. And yeah, but this is not. Yeah. Even if I put in head-to-heads. The September 2019. Losing month in head-to-heads, but I think I won in GP. I won in double ups on that month. September 2018 was great. That was like I was undefeated then. Right. I haven't played NFL for that long. 18, 19, and 20. Right. And at 17 was the end of the season, and I played GPPs. There you go. I don't think because the one thing that they should do, James and Roto Tracker, is give me, has this is the category. Have a category that's head-to-head plus double ups, plus triple ups, because you're almost always playing the same lineup in head-to-heads that you are in double ups. So I want that combined because you can't do that combined. Right?
That's kind of weird. You would think they would just have a cash game filter.
Yeah, but what do people consider quote cash? I mean, like what?
I think that the industry standard on cash games, head-to-heads, double ups, triple ups.
Right. So there should be a bucket for that. There should be because obviously these are all the types. I mean, so I don't blame them. But even leagues, it's like leagues like that. That's 3-mans, 3-mans, 5-mans, 10-mans. Those are all leagues. So would you consider that to be cash games?
I think anybody playing in a league's format is probably somebody I would want to play cash games against.
No, but leagues are like 3-mans.
Right.
So
I would still consider that a cash game.
Right.
I guess I would enter my cash game lineup into it. I'm not sure if I would consider it an actual cash game, but I would enter my cash game into it, like my cash lineup.
Max Slow asks, how much volume dollars do you generally play in NFL slate and cash? In the beginning of the season, typically it could be at least the past 2 years, maybe $8,000 to $10,000. It depends on how much good action I get. Like I said, I want to sell as many head-to-heads as I can to weaker players. So that's where the disparity comes in. I mean, I don't purposely go in and go, gotta enter all the double ups in the lobby. I don't do that. I start with the head-to-heads. I enter the largest double ups.
Oh yeah,
that they post in the lobby to start because it's going to fill up some volume, and then I let it sit there, and then a lot of times I'm filling up my cash volume Sunday morning. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not entering 23, 22-man double ups on Wednesday afternoon for a Sunday slate. Like most likely sharper players are coming in. I'll wait to the end, right? I'll wait till my head-to-heads. Maybe I could end up posting more head-to-heads, right? So like sometimes maybe my volumes on that week is going to be 5,000. Maybe it's going to be 10,000. Who knows? Because I'm posting 215s and 109. I don't know. Sometimes they get taken. Sometimes they don't get taken. Sometimes 5 get taken. Sometimes 1 get taken. I have no idea. I'm not going to enter money in unless I believe I have an edge. So there's no number for it. There may be a limit, right? A percentage, probably 10% of my total bankroll, probably, which I typically never hit. But there's no like, it's the same thing in soccer. Like I consider soccer my best sport, but the lobby is so sharp,
right?
That on a Saturday I post my head-to-heads, and if they get taken, maybe I play $2,000 in volume. And if they don't get taken, I'm playing $500 in volume. So I'm not aiming for that percentage. Why am I going to go in and go, well, I normally play $2,000 because that's an X percentage of my bankroll. So let me take $500 head-to-heads with the sharpest player in the lobby, like just to fill it out. Like, no, if I don't have an edge, there's no point. If I only end up with $120, then it's only $120. At that point, once it goes down to that level, then you start questioning whether or not you should even play the sport of those slates anymore. Right. You're doing the same amount of work for less return. But same thing in NFL. I'm not going. If it ends up being 8,000, fine. It's 8,000. If it's 10,000, it's 6,000. It's whatever it happens to be. By the end of the season, it's typically much lower, right? December, a lot of times my cash volume is like $3,000, $4,000, if that. Sometimes it may not even be that. I post the head-to-heads and nothing gets taken, or obviously I could auto match, but I know I don't want to do that because I look at the lobby and the head-to-head lobby and go, okay, there's no one here that's worth playing, right?
Yeah.
Even if you think you're slightly better than someone, you're not better than the 10% rate that you can take out of it. So you just don't even bother. And that's when you start putting more money into GPPs, right? So vice versa. Just like the first week of NFL season, I will play way more cash games than I will GPPs. I'll still play plenty of GPPs, but if I could get randos to take my head-to-heads, to me, that's the easiest money because, the return on that is, probably 10, 20% on those types of head-to-heads, and you can't beat that.
Right.
Okay. A1 Beast Mode. Well, I don't know why you keep on asking about, can you break down your cash team from yesterday? If you haven't learned by now, then I'm sorry. Then you probably should stop listening to the show.
It's just the optimal.
Well, I didn't even play. We literally had a discussion for a half an hour on why I don't play cash games on DK anymore. Right? And what am I going to break down? I take the projections, whatever the highest optimal lineup is, I play it. There's nothing to break down. What's there to break down? I never understand the question. So no, either you stop at either you understand it, or you stop asking the question. And if you don't stop asking the question, we'll just ban you from the channel. If you want that.
There's a lot of people that have the problem of thinking there's so much more deeper than that, and it's like even
NFL. Like how James, how long do you think it takes me to make my NFL cash lineup on Sunday morning?
Not long. 2 minutes.
It takes long. MLB, it takes literally 5 seconds. NFL cash games,
5 minutes.
3 minutes. They're 3 to 5 minutes.
I like to take a little bit of a different approach to cash games. In NFL, I like to try to play just the highest owned.
Yeah, but you do that in MLB. You do that in all.
I also do that in MLB, but just speaking specifically to NFL. So it takes me a little longer because in NFL, there's more chalk.
I do the same thing. That's why, James, that's why I said, that's why it takes me. Right. I'm not playing the straight. Like I subscribe to the Blitz. Like I'm not playing Cardi's Blitz Optimal most weeks. I'm playing something truthfully, it's probably pretty close to it.
1v1 or a 2v2.
Right.
But yeah, with MLB, I can just straight up just take the chalk and just put it in.
Right.
With NFL, there's a little bit more nuance to it because there's maybe like 2 wide receivers that are both going to be around 40% owned and are both in the same, they're both about the same price, and you have to make a decision there. NBA, it's the hardest for my strategy personally, because like you have to look at so much chalk and decide of like, there's like 3v3s that can happen with that strategy in NBA. And that starts to get a little bit tough, but yeah, it's not hard, man.
I spend 98%, 99% of my time on GPPs.
I don't build a cash lineup until like 5 minutes before lock starts.
I do it a little bit earlier because typically I'm running like 12:30, right?
So like 30 minutes before. Yeah. But never, I don't spend, I don't even consider, I have a dummy lineup in my cash games until 20 minutes before lock. And that's the last thing that I do. It is the stone last thing that I do. Everything else is GPPs. Everything else.
Right. Typically what I do, I bought typically by Sunday night, by Saturday night. That's why I do the Saturday streams during NFL.
Yeah.
I set, because finally we get those Saturday like injury reports and the practice reports and injury designations. And then I make if I'm building 100, 150 lineups or whatever for large field stuff, that's what I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I may tweak that in the morning, the next, Sunday morning, but then Sunday morning, once inactives come in for the early games, so like 11:30 Eastern, that's when I hand build my small field stuff.
Okay.
So my power sweep, my spy, like if I'm playing one entry into the Wildcat, like I may have 3 or 4 lineups, 5 lineups. So I could spend on just those 5 lineups an hour.
I'll spend more than that. Yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying enough time because I can't it's not like large field where it's just like, I'm going to try a whole bunch of different stuff. Right. Here it's like, okay, I need to, how is the ownership going to differ in this contest versus the other contest? So I put together those lineups. And then after I do all those 5 lineups, then I put together my cash lineup and I go, it's like, okay, what are the best values? I just essentially a lot of times it's like, okay, let me run the optimizer, run the optimal and go, well, no matter what, I want this guy in, right? I'd rather block with this guy in the running back slot than play the slightly higher projected optimal. So I'll lock him in and then run it again and see. It's like, well, how much projection am I really giving up? 0.8 points?
Yeah.
And I like this lineup better. Done. Enter it. Like that. There's the cash lineup process, right? I mean, sometimes maybe you have to decide whether or not, like, if some defense is going to be super like 60% owned defense and it's the most variant position on the board. It's like, do I want to be burned by not playing this defense? Right. And sometimes it's like, okay, let me lock in the defense everyone's playing and seeing what that lineup looks like. And I compare the 2 lineups and I go, what's the projection difference versus how much variance there is? And those are the decision. Do I go one way or the other? I don't know, but that's what takes me the 3 minutes to do. As opposed to MLB and NBA, where literally I press a button and enter that line. I mean, like there's most of the time it takes to put in the lineup is actually putting in the lineup than actually coming up. There's no thought process.
And a lot of the time, like after you've built those 5 lineups, you have analyzed so much data and so many situations that like building out that cash lineup is just
right. Just that's quick.
You already have it. You already like after you build those 5 lineups, you know where everybody's going to go. You know what the leverage points are. You know who is going to be like the best values you should be focusing on. You know the ownership of all these different players. And then you can run the optimal and you can say, okay, like I already know that 6 of these guys are like, that they're the cash game plays. What other decisions do I have to make? Block it, running back, rerun. Okay, there's one. That
right. Or decide between a wide receiver tight end 2v2. Right. Do I pay up at tight end and play a cheap 4K wide receiver, or do I pay up at wide receiver and play a cheap tight end? And you see the difference between the projection is like 1/4 of a point.
Yep.
And the ownership is virtually the same.
Yep.
And it's like, once you get to those decisions, you could flip a coin. I mean, then it's flip a coin time, right? That's it, right?
Nothing special.
People overcomplicate this, right?
Yep.
Okay, James, paydirt_DFS. People could go paydirtdfs.com. People could go and see your broken NFL model, right?
Yeah. People will be able to go see. Well, actually, right now I do have a season-long NFL model up for subscribers, which is built
does
in
the
like
season long work and the daily won't work when you'd run it?
yeah, well, no, that's what's going to happen. Exactly. So I have the season long one, which works, and then the daily one will be broken, and then they can see both of them, right? Like they can see the broken model and they can see the working model. But I do have that, and I still have esports. Going to be dedicated to esports over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, love esports. Going to be dedicated to MLB, and just getting ramped up for NFL. Hopefully, we'll have a rebuild of the site. I'm in the middle of transferring over to WordPress right now because I want to do.
Finally, and you're not using Ghost, right? Because now you're learning. Okay.
Well, I've wanted to do it for a while. It's just like I don't want to be a web developer. I'm tired of being web.
You didn't even know how to set your domain name.
What?
You didn't even know how to set your domain name.
No, I don't. No, I don't want to. I don't want to know those things. So
you don't know PHP?
I know enough PHP to be able to work with it. I don't know enough of it to be like able to say I know PHP. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I know what it is. I know how to do things in it, but like I don't actually know what to do with it. So I have somebody else helping me with it. Hopefully it'll be done in the next couple of weeks, and then I can transfer that over, and that way I can like offer some cool things for NFL that I've wanted to offer on Ghost that I just haven't been able to. So looking forward to that.
Right. You're entering my plane of coding experience.
Yeah. I'm gonna pass you real soon.
No, you're probably, because I don't care anymore. So right, I don't improve my web development skills. Right. I like all these new languages that are. I have no idea. Script, and it's all scripted. It's not even. These aren't programming languages.
Right. No.
Scripting languages. They're markup languages. They're batch processing languages.
Yeah.
I don't know actual object oriented programming at all. Okay, if you guys want to check out all the strategy stuff, it's all game theory. This is all game theory. It applies to every sport. It applies to any game. It's not even DFS. Any game. It's all about expected value. It's all about game objectives, player selection, leverage, correlation, construction, risk management, exploits, psychology, the theory of daily fantasy sports. It's a 15-hour audio masterclass. Me and James. It's all structured, right? You could probably watch most of these shows, right? Go back and listen to hundreds of hours and probably get tidbits of like everything that's in this course. Or you can have a nice structured like seminar type of thing you could put in your ears, go jogging, you could listen to over and over again. 15 hours. Go to theoryofdfs.com. How to think like a DFS player. The theory of daily fantasy sports. And got the dog days of baseball coming up. 7-game baseball slate tonight. You can always sign up to RotoGrinders Premium. Clicking on the link in the description, getting $10 off your first month. I'm in the back chat in the Discord, and we got Grinders Live coming up later today, 5:30 on YouTube. So hit that notification bell to know when we go live. 6:30 crunch time. That's for premium members, and we'll see what happens on this 7-game slate tonight. And I'll be back to review it, as I always do, tomorrow. And every Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock Eastern on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.